Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm a child psychiatrist and parent coach, and I love supporting parents to raise their children to thrive. With it being Father's Day on Sunday and it also being Men's Health Week this week, I really thought it was a good time to talk about dad's mental health because I think it's something that really doesn't get talked about very much. So I wanted to do a special little video just thinking about how dad's mental health affects children and how important it is to support dads. So if you'd like to hear these thoughts, please do listen. We know much more about mum's mental health and kids than dad's for some reason. I don't know why, but it's something that's really gone under the radar and there really isn't that much research about it. In fact, before I'm doing this video, I did check out what the research was, and there really is very little looking at how the dad's mental health, especially in the first year of life when we know that mum's mental health is really important for a child's well-being. How does the dad's mental health affect kids? There really isn't a huge amount about it. What we do know is nearly about 5% of dads will have postnatal depression in the same way that mums do, but there are some studies that actually say possibly up to a quarter of dads. I think this is probably more in first-time dads and also in dads who unfortunately are with a partner who has postnatal depression, and obviously that does increase their risks. And that is very difficult for the child because if both parents have postnatal depression, it will probably be affecting the child even more. But even if you take out mum having postnatal depression alongside dad, even if it's just the dad who's experiencing this really very significant illness, something that really stays with you and can last, a very long time. If it's only dad, there has definitely been some evidence that this does affect the child's well-being. So things like behaviour and stuff in school does get worse later on because of I think it's a real shame that this is a very neglected part of us understanding how parents' mental health interacts with a child's mental health. We know a lot more about mums and postnatal depression than we do about dads. We know a little bit more about depression and other mental illness during the lifetime, but certainly in the early stages of life, we know very little about how dad's mental health affects how the child develops. What we do know is nearly 5% of dads do suffer postpartum depression, though in some studies actually up to a quarter of dads. And I think there are some people who are more at risk of it, especially new dads and dads whose partner also has postnatal depression are much more at risk of getting it. So I think there are some populations of dads who unfortunately do get it more often. So it's actually quite a big number, and I think it's a disease that is very significant. I think dads often feel like it shouldn't be them, but they do still feel very depressed if they do get postpartum depression. So it's important to recognise that in fathers. There isn't a huge amount of data really on what happens. I actually went and did a bit of looking up to see if I was missing something, but there really aren't loads and loads of papers about it. What we do know is even if the mum doesn't have postnatal depression, it's only the dad who unfortunately suffers this very difficult illness, then there is some correlation, so some link to a child later on developing some emotional and behavioural problems sort of in primary school years. So there's obviously something about the interaction with a dad who is poorly and perhaps is feeling unsupported for a small child that does affect their emotional development. There is also some evidence that if the father has post-traumatic stress disorder, then that again can impact on the emotional well-being of a child later on in school. And of course, we know quite a lot about mums. I think we've become a bit more accepting about mums having post-traumatic stress disorder, especially if they've had a very difficult birth. And we're a bit more aware of that, though I think still not as aware as we should be. I think sometimes we really miss out on the fact that fathers are often present at those births, and actually it can be extremely traumatic for them, and it can be something that stays with them as well in exactly the same way as it does with women. So I think again it's just really important to be aware if a couple have had a very traumatic birth that the father may also be very affected by this, not not just the mum. I really wanted to talk about this because I think we have a duty to really support new dads in the very same way that we support new mums. Just because they maybe aren't breastfeeding or they might not be doing as much caring for the child for different reasons, they're not always, it doesn't matter. It is still a huge change, especially for new fathers, and it can be very daunting. And they can also have very mixed feelings about having children, just like mums do. So they still require a lot of support. So, what I'd really like to say to anyone listening to this, think about the dads in your life. If you are a man listening to this and you thinking, well, this was definitely me, do go and get your support. It's increasingly recognised that dads do need this. So if it's something you want to talk through, even if it's happened a while ago now, but now that you look back, you realise how traumatic that time was, do get someone to talk to, even if it's in a peer group of dads who also had the same difficulties. Or maybe if you're okay, but you have a friend who's a dad and you're worried about how they are, do offer them support, ask them those questions, see how they are. Assume that it could be hard for them rather than just assuming that everyone loves it, because actually there's plenty of fathers and mothers who do really struggle in the first year of life and they need our support. If you're a partner and you are feeling well yourself, but you're noticing that your partner man is not okay, you're worried about his mental health, talk to him and encourage him to get the support he needs. Offer the support that you can, because dads definitely require just as much support as mums do. And I do feel very, very passionately about this because I think they get a bit of a raw deal. I know it's not as recognised in women as it should be, but I think men are flying under the radar even more and are just expected to get on with it. So that's really my call today, is support the dads in your life if you can. And I hope you all have a lovely Father's Day. If there are any questions that you'd like me to answer or a video you'd like me to do about a specific topic, please do drop me a line. I read them, and of course I do videos on ones that I think will be interesting to the people watching this.